Hi friends, it's Lisa Hetrick, illustrator for Gina K Designs, and I'm so grateful you could join me today. I have a super fun card that's full of sunshine and lots of watercolor fun, and I'm super excited to share it with you today because we're going to do some more pattern paper fun watercolor stamping. And this card is just perfect for this time of year. My daughter's graduating from the 8th grade, and I'm going to give this to her as her graduation card because she is the sunshine of my life. So let's go ahead and get started. So here are the stamps that I'm going to be using for today's project. This is Petite Flourish, the new 6x6 deeply etched red rubber stamp, and this is the You Make Me Smile sentiment stamp set from Gina K Designs, and I'm going to be using the You Are the Sunshine of My Life. And here are the blooms. I'm going to be using the Hello Beautiful stamp set, and I'm going to be using those blooms to just kind of finish off the top of the card, using those blooms as an embellishment. I have a piece of Gina K Designs 100-pound cardstock here, and it's cut to an A2 size, and I'm going to be working with watercolor paper, but I'm going to mount that watercolor paper on top of the card base to just kind of keep that card white so that I can write a beautiful sentiment inside for my girly twirly. Okay, I also have a strip of black onyx cardstock here, cut to about 3/4 of an inch. That's going to just help ground the You Are My Sunshine, the You Are the Sunshine of My Life sentiment that I'm going to be stamping on this strip of white paper. Okay, I'm going to be using these 3 Gina K inks, and just love these. You see them a lot in my projects. I have Passionate Pink, Tangerine Twist, and Wild Dandelion. So I am just mashing this ink down onto my craft mat here in rows. So I've got the Passionate Pink and then the Wild Dandelion and the Tangerine Twist, and just repeating again to create this rows of color that are going to become the background color on my watercolor paper. So I went ahead and misted this color up a little bit. I've got some water in a mister here, and I'm just hitting this just ever so gently from a distance just to kind of get it activated. Kind of wet, not overly saturated, but wet. And I'm going to lay my watercolor paper in here. You can see a little bit of it smooshing out the side. And pulling a print from the color, and holy smokes, it is beautiful. Look at that ray of sunshine of color. Oh, I love it. I just love it. So that's going to become the base of the cardstock, of the watercolor cardstock. Now, this cardstock is still pretty wet. So while it's still wet, I'm going to go ahead and ink up the Petite Flourish background stamp with some Passionate Pink, because I'm going to do some overstamping into the wet piece of cardstock. So I'm really just inking up the center portion of the stamp because I'm going to lay the wet piece of cardstock down onto the stamp and pull another print using this background. So this Passionate Pink is going to be fantastic. It's going to be dark enough that it's going to add some contrast to this beautiful rainbow colored background that I've already created. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over and lay it down onto the stamp. And oh my goodness, I just love this because what's going to happen, I'm going to pull the print here, and some of that Passionate Pink is going to be bleeding a little bit into the water that's already on the surface of the paper. So you see that color, and those Petite Flourishes are so pretty. Aren't they pretty? So I really love the effect of this. That overstamping of the Passionate Pink on top of the layers of color that are underneath just gives it a lot of added extra texture and dimension, and it is a beautiful piece of pattern paper. So I'm just going to go ahead and heat this up a little bit to just dry it off so that I can move on to the next set. I went ahead and took the blooms from the Hello Beautiful stamp set and stamped them down onto the watercolor paper with the amalgam ink. And you've seen me do this technique before in a couple other videos. And I'm going to move ahead with a little bit of the underpainting. In the past, I've used Distress Oxide inks to do some watercolor painting, and I've also used the dye inks. I'm using dye inks today completely, and working pretty quickly and working with it very, very wet. So I'm working on all three at the same time, adding a little bit of the passionate pink, watered down, really watered that passionate pink down to create these really, really soft looking blooms. And then mixing that passionate pink with the tangerine twist, I'm getting a little bit of a different tone of color, but the contrast is perfect because I use those three colors for my card base on the watercolor paper. So of course, using them to paint the blooms is going to create a nice complementary look and feel for these embellishments. So I'm just drying them off in between before I move on to the next step. And when you're watercoloring, you really want to dry things in between before you add any more additional layers of color, because then that color will lay on top and it won't just keep saturating the paper, and you get more of a rich look and feel. And I added a little bit of water just so I can move that color around a little bit and kind of smooth it out. So I'm going to go ahead and heat these again just to get them nice and dry so that I can move ahead and fussy cut them out as embellishments. And I love using my stamps as embellished pieces, and you've seen me do this a lot in videos. I just kind of fussy cut them and use them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the You Are the Sunshine of My Life stamp on this strip, and I didn't trust myself to keep it straight like most of us, I'm sure you can attest. So I got my Misty out and just kind of lined it up ahead of time so that I could just focus on getting that stamp down with some really nice black ink, and using the amalgam. It's just my favorite. I really love using it. I was able to just kind of stamp it once and it's just super dark. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere. Well, first of all, I'm just going to play with it a little bit and see where all the elements are going to fit. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere the watercolor base to the white cardstock. And sometimes, this takes a little bit of finagling. I like to open up the piece of cardstock so that I can get the whole piece laid on there straight. And then I'm taking the black piece of black onyx cardstock and just laying it on top. I use black a lot as a grounding color for my projects so that it makes all of the other colors pop. So just laying down this strip enables me to put the You Are the Sunshine of My Life down in the white, so we get a little bit of contrast between the black and the white, and the black sentiment and the white piece of cardstock. And it's just a really simple way to add a little bit more pop to your sentiment. So I took those blooms and I just kind of laid them out to see where I wanted to position them, add a little bit of glue to the back, and just as I'm putting them down, I'm just kind of folding up the edges of the blooms to just get a little bit of curling on the edges, just to get a little bit of extra texture added to the embellishments. And I just love using my stamps for embellishments, and I think this creates a really nice flourish of blooms coming off the side. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a few Nuvo drops to the center of these flowers just to get, again, a little bit more of the black to the center of the flowers to make a nice contrast to the black sentiment and the black piece of cardstock. You could use any kind of embellishment in the center. You could use gems. You could use all kinds of things. I really like using these Nuvo drops because they're very lightweight and they don't add a lot of extra dimension to the project. I'm also going to use this yellow from Nuvo and just kind of drop in a few extra little droplets around the blooms that kind of act like a little bit of dew, but in yellow, and it just pulls out some of those yellow tones that were used in the background. And I'm really loving this card. I love using the background, the big, large background stamp to create this extra level of texture and dimension to my project. I'm super excited to give it to my girly twirly for graduation. So here's the final card, and I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.